Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the viewport of Lunar Station Alpha, her reflection ghosting against the stars. The notification on her tablet hadn't changed in the past hour. 50 ships of unknown origin had just crossed Neptune's orbit. They were coming, and they weren't responding to any attempts at communication. "Madam Ambassador," her aide's voice cracked slightly. "The Security Council is ready." Chen didn't turn from the viewport. "Tell me something, Marcus. Do you know why we built our first permanent bases on the dark side of the moon? Resource extraction, wasn't it? That's what the press releases said." Chen finally turned, her expression grim. "We built them because someone had to watch the depths. While everyone else looked down at Earth, we looked up. And now we know why." The Security Council chamber was a stark contrast to the usual UN meetings on Earth. No flags, no ceremonial trappings. Just 30 of humanity's best minds connected via quantum-encrypted channels. Chen took her seat as the last feeds came online. The Hesper array confirms it. General Santos' hologram flickered slightly. 50 vessels, each approximately the size of Manhattan. They're using some form of gravitational propulsion we've never seen before. And they're not talking. Chen added, bringing up the transmission logs. "We've tried everything from radio waves to quantum signaling. Either they can't hear us, or they don't want to," finished Dr. Patel, her face illuminated by screens off camera. "The energy readings from their ships suggest technology centuries ahead of ours. They know we're here. They're choosing not to respond." Chen watched the faces around the table. Fear, yes, but something else too. Determination. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, even if they didn't know it. Every war, every crisis, every near-extinction event had taught them something crucial. Adaptation was survival. "What are our options?" President Mickey's deep voice cut through the tension. "Conventional military response would be suicide," Santos replied. "Their ships could probably shrug off our entire nuclear arsenal. Then we don't fight conventionally." Chen pulled up a series of files she'd prepared years ago, hoping they'd never be needed. Project Scattered Mirror. Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "That's theoretical. We never got the quantum entanglement stable enough for." "We did," Chen interrupted. 6 months ago. We kept it classified because we weren't sure how to explain why we needed it. Well, now we know. The plan was audacious, insane, even. But that was humanity's greatest strength. The ability to conceive and execute the impossible when backed into a corner. Over the next 72 hours, as the alien fleet crossed the solar system, humanity prepared. Every satellite, every space station, every lunar base was repurposed. Quantum computers that had been solving climate models were redirected. Solar arrays that powered Earth's cities were subtly realigned. The aliens made their first demonstration of power just past Mars. A small asteroid, about 2 kilometers wide, vanished in a flash of light. The message was clear: surrender or face obliteration. Chen watched the recording with the others. They expect us to be impressed, to be cowed by their technological superiority. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let's show them something they've never seen before. When the alien fleet reached lunar orbit, they finally deigned to communicate. Their message was simple, transmitted in perfectly synthesized English. Your system is now under the protection of the Galactic Federation. Resist and face extinction. Humanity's response came not in words, but in action. Project Scattered Mirror activated. Every reflective surface in Earth's orbit, from solar panels to satellite dishes, suddenly aligned. Quantum entangled particles, distributed throughout the system, created a network of impossible mathematics, and in an instant, the laws of physics around the alien fleet shifted. The massive ships found themselves in a bubble of altered spacetime, where their advanced technology suddenly operated under different rules. Gravitational drives faltered. Weapon systems crashed against mathematical impossibilities. It wasn't an attack, it was a fundamental rewriting of their operational context. What? What have you done? The alien transmission came, this time with a note of confusion, perhaps even fear. Chen's response was calm, measured. We've demonstrated that technology isn't everything. You came here expecting to find savages with crude rockets and nuclear weapons. Instead, you found humans. We don't just adapt to our environment. We change the rules of the game entirely. The alien fleet hung in space, their mighty ships powerless in the quantum bubble that humanity had created. They had come expecting to find prey, but instead discovered that humans had turned their entire solar system into a trap. Here are our terms, Chen continued. You will withdraw. You will acknowledge Earth's sovereignty. And you will spread word to your Federation that humanity is not to be underestimated. We do not want war, but if forced to fight, we will not do so on your terms. The silence that followed lasted exactly 17 minutes. Then, one by one, the alien ships began to retreat, their gravitational drives struggling against the altered physics around them. As Chen watched them go, Marcus spoke quietly beside her. They'll be back, won't they? Of course, Chen replied. But next time, they'll come as equals, not conquerors. And that makes all the difference. In the depths of space, the alien fleet regrouped, their commanders struggling to understand what had happened. They had encountered many species in their expansion, but never one that could change the fundamental rules of reality itself. Humanity would need to be approached differently, not as a primitive species to be conquered, but as something new, something unprecedented. The message that spread through the Galactic Federation was clear. The humans of Sol don't play by anyone's rules but their own. And perhaps most terrifyingly, they had achieved this not through superior technology, but through sheer innovative determination. Earth celebrated, but Chen and the others knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not with violence, but with ingenuity. The real challenge would be what came next. The Galactic Federation's Central Council was in chaos. Councillor Vexthor, his crystalline form shimmering with agitation, projected the latest surveillance data of Sol's system. They're building something, he announced to the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. But our best analysts can't determine what. The holographic display showed Earth's orbital space transformed. Where there had once been primitive satellites and basic space stations, now there was a web of structures that defied conventional engineering. Quantum fields rippled between construction sites, and massive arrays of what appeared to be simple solar panels formed patterns that made advanced AI systems crash when they tried to analyze them. 3 months since our diplomatic contact, Vexthor continued, and they've accelerated their development exponentially. But they're not building weapons. At least, not any weapons we recognize. High Chancellor Zin, ancient even by her species standards, leaned forward on her gravity throne. Have they responded to our latest communication attempts? No, High Chancellor. They acknowledge receipt of our messages, but provide no substantive response. They simply continue building. In the depths of Earth's Marianas Trench, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the ambassador, adjusted her neural interface as she supervised the construction of humanity's latest innovation. The underwater facility, protected from both surveillance and attack by kilometers of ocean, housed Project Quantum Mirror's core processors. Status report, she subvocalized, the command carrying through quantum-encrypted channels to teams worldwide. Asian continent grid is online, came the first response. European integration at 89% and climbing. African solar arrays are aligned and calibrated. South American quantum nodes are sensing now. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They were ahead of schedule. In high orbit, Ambassador Chen, who had insisted on maintaining her diplomatic role despite numerous promotion offers, met with humanity's newest allies. Representatives from 3 minor species who had secretly reached out after Earth's demonstration of quantum manipulation. Your Federation masters don't understand what they're seeing, explained Crix, a methane-breathing entity whose environmental suit couldn't quite hide their nervous movements. They expect either submission or conventional military buildup. This terrifies them. Good, Chen replied simply. Fear isn't our goal, but it's a useful side effect. Are your people ready for the next phase? The three representatives exchanged glances. Their species had been protected by the Federation for centuries, their development carefully controlled. What humanity offered wasn't just alliance, it was liberation. Back on Earth, in classrooms and universities, in labs and workshops, a quiet revolution was taking place. Children learned new mathematics that made traditional physics textbooks obsolete. Engineers reimagined construction using principles that blended quantum mechanics with biological systems. Artists collaborated with scientists to design structures that were as much philosophy as architecture. Humanity wasn't just preparing for war, they were evolving. In orbit around Jupiter, Federation surveillance ships watched with growing unease as humans transformed the Galilean moons into what appeared to be an enormous astronomical instrument. But when they tried to scan it, their sensors returned impossible readings. They're not building weapons, reported the ship's captain to Central Council. They're building something else, something we don't understand. High Chancellor Zinn, reviewing the report in her private chambers, felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. The Federation had encountered thousands of species, uplifted some, subjugated others. Their pattern was tried and tested. Primitive species either accepted Federation protection or were forced to accept it. But humans weren't following the pattern. In the quantum-secured chambers of the UN Security Council, humanity's leaders reviewed their progress. Project Quantum Mirror is at 78% completion, Dr. Peddle reported. Once fully operational, it will allow us to extend the physics-altering effect demonstrated during first contact across the entire solar system. The Federation's minor allies continue to defect, Chen added. Not openly, not yet, but they're sharing technology, information. More importantly, they're sharing their culture, their art, their dreams. They see in us something the Federation doesn't understand. The possibility of true independence. President Mbeki nodded slowly. And the Helix Array. Dr. Sarah Chen's hologram flickered to life. Ready for preliminary testing. If it works as designed, it will allow us to detect and counter any form of FTL travel within 5 light-years of Sol. No more surprise visits. The pieces were falling into place. Humanity's response to the Federation's attempted conquest wasn't to build bigger guns or faster ships. Instead, they were changing the rules of space itself, creating a domain where their understanding of physics, their way of thinking, was the only way to operate. In deep space, Federation ships continued their surveillance, their crews growing increasingly uneasy as their sensors reported more and more impossible readings from Sol system. They had expected humanity to either submit or fight. Instead, humans were doing something unprecedented. They were rewriting reality itself. The message spreading through the galaxy wasn't carried by weapons or threats. It was carried by ideas, by the possibility that a species could chart its own course, could redefine its place in the universe, through innovation rather than force. And in her office on Lunar Station Alpha, Ambassador Chen watched the stars and smiled. The Federation thought they had humanity cornered. Instead, they had given them exactly what they needed: a reason to unite, to innovate, to transcend their limitations. The silent response was nearly complete. Soon, the galaxy would understand that humanity wouldn't fight on anyone's terms but their own. The Federation battleship, Eternal Dominion, materialized at the edge of Sol's gravity well, leading a fleet of 300 vessels. High Admiral Kazith stood on his command deck, mandibles clicking with anticipation. After 6 months of watching humans reshape their system, the Federation Council had finally authorized a decisive response. Launch the quantum dampeners, he ordered. Let's see how their tricks hold up without their precious altered physics. The dampening field expanded outward, a wave of normal spacetime intended to crush humanity's quantum manipulations. But as it reached the outer markers of Sol system, something unexpected happened. The field didn't just fail, it reversed. On Earth, in the depths of the Mariana facility, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the readings with satisfaction. They took the bait. She subvocalized to the Global Defense Network, initiating Protocol Mobius. The Federation fleet found itself caught in a cascade of their own dampening field, amplified and reflected back by humanity's quantum mirror network. But this wasn't just a defensive measure. Each ship's quantum signature was being recorded, analyzed, and added to Earth's growing database of Federation technology. Ambassador Chen, watching from the new Titan Observatory, received the preliminary analysis. Their entire command and control structure relies on quantum-entangled communications, she noted. Elegant, but predictable. Dr. Patel, are you seeing this? Already on it, came the scientist's reply. Their quantum encryption is based on a universal constant we discovered was actually variable 3 months ago. Give us an hour. High Admiral Kaz's confidence turned to confusion as his fleet's secure communications began to experience unprecedented interference. Not simple jamming. Their quantum-entangled messages were being intercepted, decoded, and sometimes even altered in transit. Impossible, he hissed. Pull back to minimum safe distance. Prepare the kinetic bombardment platforms. But as his ships attempted to reposition, they encountered another surprise. The very fabric of space around Sol had become sticky. Federation drives, designed to work with universal constants, struggled against localized physics that seemed to operate on completely different principles. Human ships emerged from behind Jupiter's moons, but they weren't the crude warships the Federation had expected. Instead, they were small, agile craft that seemed to swim through the altered spacetime like fish in water. They carried no visible weapons, yet wherever they passed, Federation systems began to fail in cascading patterns. Your Admiral is receiving this transmission, yes. Ambassador Chen's voice echoed through every ship in the Federation fleet simultaneously. Good. Let's talk about the fundamental flaw in your approach to galactic civilization. Kaz's bridge crew looked to him nervously as screens throughout his ship displayed data that should have been impossible for humans to access. Detailed breakdowns of Federation technology, social structures, and even private council communications. You built an empire on technological superiority, Chen continued. But you forgot something crucial about evolution. True adaptation doesn't come from having the biggest guns. It comes from necessity, from having to think differently to survive. The Federation fleet watched in horror as their own quantum dampeners, now fully under human control, began systematically isolating each ship in its own bubble of altered spacetime. They weren't being destroyed. They were being studied, their technology dissected by human quantum computers that operated on principles the Federation hadn't even theorized possible. In the Mariana facility, Dr. Sarah Chen's team worked feverishly, integrating the flood of new data into humanity's growing understanding of Federation technology. We're not just learning their technology, she announced to the Global Defense Council. We're learning how to transcend it. The Federation fleet hung helpless in space, their mighty ships reduced to floating laboratories for human research. Admiral Kaz received the final transmission from Ambassador Chen with a mixture of rage and dawning respect. You came here thinking we would either submit to your protection or fight a conventional war, she said. Instead, we chose to understand you. Every weapon you brought, every defense you mounted, has only served to educate us. Your technology is now our technology. Your understanding of physics is now part of our understanding. The message was clear. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had turned the entire confrontation into a learning opportunity. The Federation's show of force had become a voluntary technology transfer. As the Federation fleet was finally allowed to limp away, their quantum drives barely functioning in normal space, the message they carried back to their council was dire. Humans hadn't just resisted, they had fundamentally changed the rules of engagement. They had turned the Federation's greatest strengths into tools for their own advancement. In the aftermath, as humanity began integrating their newly acquired knowledge, Ambassador Chen met with the representatives of their growing coalition of former Federation client species. "They'll be back," Crix warned, their environmental suit humming with anxiety. "Of course they will," Chen replied. "But next time, we won't just be defending our territory. We'll be ready to help others defend theirs." The stars seemed to shine brighter that night, as humanity's influence began to spread through the galaxy, not through conquest or protection, but through something far more powerful: the sharing of knowledge, the teaching of self-reliance, and the demonstration that true strength comes not from dominance, but from adaptation. The Federation's Central Council's emergency session had lasted 7 standard days. The massive chamber, usually a model of order and hierarchy, had devolved into chaos as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. High Chancellor Zin watched in growing dismay as the holographic displays showed system after system implementing human-designed quantum technology. "It's spreading like a virus," Counselor Vexthor declared, his crystalline form clouded with stress patterns. "The humans aren't conquering anyone. They're teaching them how to resist us." On a small agricultural world at the Federation's borders, a farming community of insectoid beings gathered around a simple quantum transmitter, technology that would have been considered too advanced for them mere months ago. Their mandibles clicked in excitement as a holographic tutorial, narrated by Dr. Patel, explained how to modify their planetary defense grid to operate on human-designed principles. In Earth's new quantum communication center, Ambassador Chen reviewed the latest statistics with satisfaction. "How many systems have contacted us for assistance?" she asked her aide. 217 as of this morning," Marcus replied, his hologram flickering slightly as he accessed the secure database. "Mostly smaller worlds, those the Federation deemed too primitive for full membership. But there's a pattern. They're all sharing what they learn. It's growing exponentially." Dr. Sarah Chen's team had anticipated this. The quantum technology they'd developed wasn't just about altering physics. It was designed to be understood, to be taught, to be improved upon by others. Every society that adopted it added their own innovations, which were then shared back through the growing network. In a distant mining colony, beings that had spent generations extracting resources for the Federation suddenly found themselves able to communicate instantaneously with similar colonies across the galaxy. They shared not just technical knowledge, but stories, art, dreams of independence. The Federation's carefully maintained hierarchy was being replaced by something organic, something that grew from the bottom up rather than the top down. High Admiral Cass, still struggling to rebuild his reputation after the Sol system debacle, presented his findings to the Council. "The humans have created something worse than a rebellion," he reported grimly. "They've created a community." On Mars, now home to the largest sinological research center in the Sol system, representatives from 30 different species gathered for the first Galactic Scientific Congress. The agenda wasn't war or politics. It was sharing knowledge, combining different perspectives on the universe. The Federation built its power on controlling access to technology. Dr. Sarah Chen explained to the assembled beings, "We believe knowledge should be shared, adapted, improved upon. Every species sees the universe differently. Every perspective adds to our understanding." The Federation's response to this growing crisis proved exactly why their system was failing. They attempted to blockade worlds that had adopted human technology, only to find their ship's quantum drives refused to function in the altered space around these planets. They tried to cut off communication, only to discover the quantum network they'd relied on for centuries had been fundamentally transformed. Ambassador Chen, addressing the UN Security Council, summarized humanity's strategy. "We're not fighting the Federation. We're making them irrelevant." The transformation wasn't just technological. Species that the Federation had classified as primitive were developing their own versions of quantum physics, combining it with their unique biological and cultural perspectives. A hive mind species created quantum networks that operated on principles of collective consciousness. Aquatic beings developed systems that used quantum fields to communicate through oceanographic patterns. In her private chambers, High Chancellor Zinn received a message that made her ancient heart stop momentarily. The Proxima Centauri system, long considered one of the Federation's most loyal holdings, had just announced its independence, not through violence or rebellion, but by simply implementing its own quantum defense network and joining what was now being called the Galactic Knowledge Cooperative. "We don't need protection anymore," their announcement stated simply. "We have something better. We have understanding." Dr. Sarah Chen, reviewing the latest data from the growing network, made an unexpected discovery. The combined quantum experiments of hundreds of species were revealing patterns in spacetime that no single civilization could have observed alone. The universe, it seemed, was stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. "This was never about defending ourselves," she told Ambassador Chen during their weekly conference. "It was about showing the galaxy a different way to grow, to learn, to exist." The Federation's power had been built on technological superiority and the promise of protection. Humanity had shown the galaxy something different: the power of shared knowledge, of diverse perspectives, of collective innovation. As the network grew, as more worlds joined the cooperative, the message became clear: the future wouldn't belong to those who hoarded knowledge or power, but to those who shared it, who helped others grow, who recognized that true strength came from diversity of thought and approach. The stars themselves seemed to shine differently now, their light carrying quantum messages between worlds that had once been isolated, between species that had once been told they were too primitive to understand the universe's deeper mysteries. And at the center of it all was humanity, not as conquerors or protectors, but as teachers, as catalysts for a transformation that would reshape the galaxy. The Great Hall of the Federation's Central Council stood empty for the first time in 10,000 years. High Chancellor Zinn sat alone on her gravity throne, watching holocaust from across the galaxy. Everywhere, the story was the same. Worlds weren't rebelling against Federation authority. They were simply moving beyond it. "You understand now, don't you?" Ambassador Chen's hologram appeared before her, a courtesy call that felt more like a eulogy for an empire. "Why we chose this path." Zinn's ancient eyes studied the human representative. "You could have destroyed us," she said finally. "Your quantum manipulation technology, combined with the knowledge of hundreds of species, you could have crushed the Federation militarily. That would have made us exactly what you feared, another conquering force," Chen replied. "We chose a different path. Not conquest, not even revolution. Evolution." On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the new Galactic Exchange Center, watching representatives from over 1,000 worlds share discoveries. Former Federation worlds mingled with species that had been deemed too primitive for contact, each bringing unique perspectives to the growing pool of universal knowledge. The latest breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a gas giant dwelling species that the Federation had classified as presentient. Their understanding of quantum fields, filtered through their experience of living in eternal storms, had unlocked new principles of space-time manipulation that left even human scientists in awe. The Federation's fundamental mistake, Dr. Chen explained to a group of visiting scholars, wasn't their desire for order. It was their assumption that order could only come from control. High Admiral Kaz, his once mighty fleet now reduced to a ceremonial force, received the final status report from his remaining ships. The quantum network that had once been the Federation's strength had been completely transformed. Their technology, designed to maintain control, had been repurposed to foster connection. "The humans didn't defeat us," he realized, speaking to his empty bridge. "They obsoleted us." Across the galaxy, the transformation continued. The Galactic Knowledge Cooperative, as it had come to be known, operated on principles that would have been impossible under Federation rule. Species didn't advance along a predetermined path. They contributed their unique perspectives to a growing understanding of the universe. In the Mariana facility, now expanded into a global network of quantum research centers, Dr. Sarah Chen made a startling discovery. The combined knowledge of thousands of species, shared freely through the quantum network, had revealed something extraordinary. The universe itself seemed to be responding to their collective understanding. It's as if reality becomes richer the more perspectives we bring to it, she explained to Ambassador Chen. The Federation sought to impose a single understanding of physics, of civilization, of progress. But the universe rewards diversity. High Chancellor Xin stood before the remnants of the Federation Council for the last time. Her speech was brief, but it would be remembered for generations. We sought to protect, to guide, to control. But in doing so, we denied the greatest truth of existence. That growth comes not from conformity, but from the endless variety of life itself. The dissolution of the Federation wasn't marked by war or celebration, but by transformation. Former member worlds didn't declare independence. They simply began operating under new principles, contributing to and drawing from the collective knowledge of the cooperative. Ambassador Chen, watching from humanity's new embassy on a dozen worlds, reflected on the journey. We didn't set out to destroy the Federation, she told her assembled staff. We set out to show the galaxy a different way of existing. Not through dominance, not through protection, but through shared growth. The final act of the Federation's Central Council was not surrender, but evolution. High Chancellor Xin, speaking for the last time from her gravity throne, announced the Federation's transformation into a member of the cooperative, not as leaders, but as learners. Dr. Sarah Chen's team made one final discovery that seemed to encapsulate everything humanity had fought for. The quantum network, now spanning the galaxy, had begun to reveal patterns that suggested consciousness itself was a fundamental force in the universe, one that grew stronger through diversity and connection. The message that spread through the galaxy wasn't one of victory or defeat, but of transformation. Humanity had shown that true power didn't come from controlling reality, but from understanding it, and that understanding grew deeper with every perspective added to the collective knowledge. As ships from 1,000 worlds gathered for the first Galactic Congress of Shared Knowledge, the stars themselves seemed to pulse with new energy. The universe, it seemed, had been waiting for its children to learn this lesson, that the greatest strength comes not from imposing order, but from embracing the endless variety of existence itself. The age of the Federation had ended, and something new had begun. Not an empire, not a protection racket, but a community of minds reaching together toward understanding. And at its heart was the simple truth that humanity had known all along, that the greatest adventures come not from conquering the unknown, but from learning to see it through ever new eyes.